Welcome back, everyone. This is Mr. Brain, your friendly neighborhood gaming dad, and now that Island Raid is over, I can make a few more videos. Now, I got a little bit of publicity during Island Raid due to my streams, especially on the final day, so I actually got a few questions that were a little bit interesting, and one of them I wanted to address tonight. This actually came from HughJanas. Specifically, the first question he asks here is, I would like to see you do a step-by-step analysis and explanation of battle reports. Now, if you've seen my other videos, some of my other videos anyway, I've gone over some battle reports in order to explain what different portions of them mean, as far as what counter damage is, basic damage is. You can actually see my breakdown of definitions in the game, and I'll try and put the card in the video after this is done. So, without further ado, let's pull up a report from Island Raid. And I actually had a couple of them saved that I was proud of and had a decent amount of information. So, we're just going to go from the top down and explain exactly what we're looking at. First things first, you should know all of the basic information. When the fight happened, what time the fight started, your total squads at the start of it, and your total squads at the end. That's what this all means. It even has a nice little graph so you can see how your team was doing throughout the fight, and it matches when these particular fights were going on. The start and stop time of these fights is the red bars. So as you can see, Two Hots Rise Against was for a small portion of it here, but Two Hots White Walker was for a good portion of the fight, almost about a third of it right here. As you can see, the total amount of time fighting for this string was about 2 minutes, which isn't a bad fight for around my area of skill level. Every one of these is an individual instance of attacking or whether they were affected by the fight itself. If you have AoE heroes, if you have AoE buffs and debuffs, specifically debuffs will show up more. But anytime a person enters the fight through damage or debuff will show up in this string. And it's very comprehensive. It does have a limit, though. I can actually go to another of my reports and actually physically count it, but I'm not going to do that right now. Just know that if it doesn't go past a certain point, you've hit the limit that it's allowed to show here. What you can do is say, I want more information on how this fight went. I can click on this, and it'll pull me down to this particular fight. So let's take a look at what this one is. It tells me the time, the date, and the exact location that the fight happened. It tells us where our two shelters were at the time. The loss in power is primarily based on the amount of deaths and heavily wounded. Because heals, you obviously get them back. Slightly wounded and survived are still alive. So when it talks about loss in might, it's only counting heavily wounded and deaths. So keep that in mind. It tells you what commanders were being used in the fight. Primary, secondary, primary, secondary. The standard layout will tell you what your equipment is first. And you can actually click over here to see what the armaments are. If I click on the commander equipment and click on each individual one, it will tell you what buffs they have based on the entire grouping. They've reached all the way to 7 elite equipments, so they have up to here. But since I have 3 legendary and 3 supreme, I get additional attack power. Scrolling down, it tells me how many troops I had at the start of this particular fight, and that will change over time. At the start of this fight, I had 302,000, but at the start of this one, I only had 299. There are reasons for that. Heals do make a difference. They had 262. By the end of it, this is all that was left of the troops on either side. This is my favorite portion of it, the squad buffs. Here, you can see the stat bonuses applied by each side. And it will tell you, obviously, in green if you had an advantage, or red if you had a disadvantage. It won't affect the enemy side, it will only show you yours. So keep that in mind. As you can see, my infantry buffs were significantly larger than theirs. Riders weren't as strong, weren't as overpowered as theirs, because it's technically a rider team. Ranged, I still had an advantage, and you can see what all of these mean. You can come take a look at these yourself. I've already explained what attack, defense, HP, damage, lethality, block. I've explained what all those are. You can go check out my definitions video for that. I'm happy to emphasize later if I need to. But this can tell you, if you don't know why you won or why you lost, this is probably the screen you want to go to first, because this is the biggest reason. Backing out, here we have the bread and butter of the entire fight. This breaks down the second by second interactions between these two troops, and it does include any other time another troop affected them. So, say during this fight, someone else's Lee hit me with a debuff. It would show up in here. What you can do is you can go through and see exactly how much damage you were doing and how much damage they were doing. In this particular round of combat, I got off a skill. It said the rage skill is used this turn because I was already in combat. During this round, I inflicted almost 2,000 troops worth of damage to them, and they inflicted about 126 troops worth of damage to me. Second round, you can see how each different round of combat works out. The ones that look about similar are your standard rounds of combat. If it shows any drastic change, you can actually pull up the two different ones and see what affected it. So let's pull up this one, because this one is about a standard round for this person and myself. I got my heal, which healed 1,623 troops. Cynthia and Calamity was inflicted by increased damage dealt effect from her fighting spirit. And we can see here her fighting spirit for the first 10 seconds they're in combat, because as a rider, I believe this is a rider talent, they have an additional damage buff. Awesome. I have a passive skill from a nearby Tom that was reducing damage taken by me by 15%. So this is kind of a wash. And then Cynthia launched a basic attack on me that dealt 101 damage worth of troops. The basic attack triggered her Unstoppable Fury, which is a talent that gave her 8 rage. In response to this basic attack, my Raigoro launched a counterattack for 1,968 troops. That basic attack, her basic attack triggered my Raging Heart. Actually, because I was fighting someone else at the time, my basic attack triggered Raging Heart, which gave me 8 rage, and when I was attacked, I gained another 8 rage. What I can tell you from this combat is I was not directly fighting this person. They were hitting me, and I was only dealing my counterattack damage back to them. It explains why there's no basic attack from me and no counterattack from them. But as you can see, there's still 300 troops less of damage here, so let's try and figure out why. And here we have it already. I got my heal. They still have their damage increase. I don't have my damage reduction from Tom anymore. They launched a basic attack and dealt 122 troops worth of damage. This basic attack triggered high caliber, which gives her a healing factor that healed 622 troops. Gave her her rage from Unstoppable Fury. Raigoro launched a counterattack on Cynthia, 1,973. 1,973 minus the 622 troops that she did heal rounds out to 1,351. And then you still have Raging Heart and Wild Rage. I also got an additional reduces damage taken from a separate source, it does not tell me, for 3 seconds. You can pull each of these down and get different instances of what is going on. We have Raigoro's skill. Raigoro used Rage skill, Guardian Deity, gives me the shield, tells me how much it can absorb. Here we have Thunder uses Rage skill. Super Thunder received heal for 5 seconds, which is what is triggering every turn from the other seconds that we were looking at. Also triggers Role Model, his Awaken skill, which increases my damage for 2 turns. This is telling me that Cynthia is about to activate her Rage skill, Dual Fire, and here it activates. We have Cynthia Calamity uses Rage skill, Dual Fire. I lost 0 troops because the shield absorbed the entirety of the damage and could absorb quite a bit more. And the second one has Maxine's Rage skill, Invasive Attack. Lost no troops because I still had the shield up. I lost 50 rage from Invasive Attack and reduced my damage due to it. One more interesting thing that you can do with the battle report, and I like to save this one for last because it condenses a lot of things for you. Each of these icons is an instance of a passive skill or an active skill being activated. If we come down here first, this is High Caliber. This is the heal ability that Cynthia has. Here is Dual Fire. This is her direct damage skill. It tells you how many kills and how many heals it was capable of doing for each instance that it happened. High Caliber healed a total of 3,860 troops in the 8 times that it went off. Her Dual Fire never touched me because I would have had kills here. Cool Heroine doesn't give any damage or heals, but telling me that it went off 10 times means that I got an additional 500 rage, that she got an additional 500 rage throughout this fight. And then Maxine's Invasive Attack went off 5 times. Up here, same thing. Guardian Deity went off 7 times. It doesn't heal or kill. Role Model just increases the damage. Yokozuna increases damage dealt by 16%. This should match the not quite matching the amount of times because it was up by 3 seconds. That's why. Since this tells me that Yokozuna activated 18 times, Super Thunder activated 7 times, and Storm Possession activated once when someone attacked me. You can easily look at these, especially the active skill damage ones, to see how much you're healing or dealing damage in the amount of times that it goes off. This is telling me in the 7 times that it activated, I healed for 20,000 troops worth of damage. That's an average of about 3,000 per instance. So that tells me I'm healing about 3,000 troops. That's pretty good. we can kind of compare that to other fights and see if we're over healing or under healing, and we can adjust our talents and matchups to try and get better trades. You can do this a lot better with skill damage as well, trying to make sure it's like, how many times can I get that skill off? How many kills can I get in that many activations? So on and so forth. The battle report, or the combat log, is where you fine tune everything. It's actually, and you get a battle report for just about everything. I can come in here, and even though this fight only lasted a second, I still get a report from it. And it tells me everything. I can pull up the exact fight that was in here, launched a basic attack, launched a counter attack, all of it. So hopefully this wasn't too boring to listen to. Hopefully it helped answer a few questions that you had about how to read the combat log. If you have any more specific questions, please feel free to reach out and ask questions either on my Discord page or reach out to me in person. The other thing that I want to make sure that is known is I don't care who I help. The person who asked this question is actually from an alliance that was against us in Island Raid. So I really don't care who I help. I want to make sure that everybody enjoys the game. So, with that being said, I will leave this here. This is Mr. Rain, your friendly neighborhood gaming dad, signing off.